welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Stephanie and I appreciate y'all stopping by. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made these 6 harvest themed decor DIYs that are perfect for bringing the cozy and warm feeling of autumn into your home. These projects are easy to make and will add a touch of harvest charm to any room. So grab some crafting supplies and let's get started. Let's go ahead and jump into DIY number 1. For this project, I used this 2-pack of 10-inch grapevine wreaths from Hobby Lobby and 2 packs of this reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree. I kept the 2 wreaths attached to each other to make one thicker wreath, and working in sections, I used hot glue to attach the reindeer moss around a little less than half of the wreath, making sure to cover the front, back, and sides of the wreath with the moss. Next, I used some of these puka pods from this package that I picked up on sale at Hobby Lobby. I picked out several of the pods that looked the most like pumpkins and used hot glue to attach them around the moss-covered section of the wreath, and this one is finished. I am in love with the way this wreath turned out. I made a mini version for my fall tiered tray, but I wanted one to go on this mini wreath stand that I keep on my mantle. Quickly moving on to DIY number 2. For this project, I used this 8.3-inch clay pot from Hobby Lobby and started by using painter's tape to section off the top half of the pot. I then used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster to paint the top section with one thin coat. Once that was dry, I used washi tape to cover up the bottom of the white section and painter's tape to tape off the bottom of the middle section. I then used Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin to paint the middle section with one thin coat. After the paint was completely dry, I used washi tape to cover up the bottom of the orange section. I then used Waverly chalk paint in the color maize to paint the bottom half of the pot with one thin coat. Next, I used one of these 6.7-inch clay saucers from Hobby Lobby and painted it in the same way I did the clay pot, and this one is finished. I think this candy corn planter turned out super cute, and I decided to put some orange mums in it to display on my entryway table. On to DIY number 3. For this project, I used this Harvest Prayer printable that I created on Canva and printed out onto some cardstock, and this rustic 8x10 picture frame that I picked up at Walmart. I removed the back of the frame and all the contents, including the mat. I then used the photo insert as a guide and traced it out onto the front of the printable and cut it down to fit inside the frame. Then, to finish this one, I placed the Harvest Prayer into the frame and went ahead and replaced the back and all the inserts, and that's it for this one. I absolutely love this one. I think the prayer itself is beautiful, and then paired with this rustic frame, I think it is perfect. I will leave a link to this printable in the description box below if you would like to download it and print it out. Today's video is part of the Hello Harvest playlist hosted by Tammy from the Rusted Willow and Ellie from DIY from House to Home, along with their special guest host Marla from The Chic Show. Y'all, these ladies are all incredibly talented crafters and have some amazing DIYs. So if you haven't checked out their channels, I highly encourage you to do so. I will leave a link to their channels in the description box below, as well as leave a link to the playlist so you can get even more harvest and fall decor inspiration once you finish my video. Now that I've said all that, let's jump into DIY number 4. For this project, I used 2 of these 7-inch bamboo circles that I got in this variety pack from Amazon, and I will have these listed in my Amazon shop that's linked in the description box. I started by placing one of the circles inside the other circle and used a dab of hot glue at the top and at the bottom to secure them together. I used hot glue for video purposes, but I would recommend using wood glue for a more permanent hold. Next, I used one of these wood pieces that I got in a pack from the Dollar Tree for the stem of the pumpkin. I used my mini miter saw to cut off a 1-inch piece for the stem. I will also have this saw in my Amazon shop if you're interested. Once I had the stem cut to size, I used hot glue to attach it to the top of the 2 circles. Next, I used 53 of these 3/4-inch wood half beads from Amazon, and I do have these listed in my shop as well. I used hot glue to attach the wood beads all the way around each section of the pumpkin. On the bottom of the pumpkin where the 2 circles cross, I hot glued one of the beads upside down so that the flat part would set on the table and the pumpkin would set on its own. I then used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster to paint the entire pumpkin with one good coat. Next, I took 4 pieces of this pumpkin ribbon, 4 pieces of this orange and gold ribbon, and 4 pieces of this orange check ribbon, all from Dollar Tree, and dovetailed all the ends. I used these ribbons to create a messy bow by crisscrossing the ribbons, alternating the designs, and then used a piece of jute twine to tie them together in the middle. To finish up this project, I used hot glue to attach the bow to the top of the pumpkin right at the bottom of the stem, and that's it for this one. I wasn't too sure about this project at first, but I think it turned out super cute, and it's a different kind of pumpkin for sure. Moving on to DIY number 5. For this project, I used one of these long wood hanging decor signs from the Dollar Tree and removed the jute hanger. I then gave it 1 coat of Waverly Antique Wax. I also used 7 of these 3-inch wooden tags from Hobby Lobby that come in a pack of 6. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin and gave the front and sides of each tag 1 light coat. Once the paint was completely dry, I laid the tags out onto the front of the sign, spacing them out as evenly as possible, and used hot glue to attach them to the sign, using a ruler to help keep them in a straight line. Next, I used these wooden letters from this pack of 1-inch script letters from Hobby Lobby, and used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster to paint the front and sides of each letter with 1 light coat. Once the paint was dry, I placed one of the letters on each of the tags to spell out the word harvest, and used hot glue to secure them in place, again using a ruler to help keep them straight. I also used 4 of these 3/4-inch wooden half beads from Amazon and gave them 1 coat of Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster. After the paint was dry, I used hot glue to attach one of the wooden beads to each corner of the sign, making sure to cover up the holes from the hanger. To cover up the holes on the top of the tags, I took some pieces of a boxwood pick and cut off 3 leaves and used hot glue to attach them to the top of the tag. To finish up the pumpkin tags, I made 7 tiny shoestring bows using the jute that came with the tags and used hot glue to attach 1 to the top of each tag. Next, I took 3 of the tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree and gave them 1 coat of Waverly Antique Wax. Then, to finish off this sign, I used hot glue to attach the tumbling tower blocks to the back of the sign so that it would stand on its own. Now, I used hot glue for this project for video purposes, but I would recommend using wood glue or a stronger adhesive for a more permanent hold. I'm super happy with the way this little sign turned out. It makes a perfect filler piece for a shelf. And last but not least, DIY number 6. For this project, I used this wooden pumpkin cutout from the Dollar Tree and gave it 1 coat of Waverly Antique Wax. I also used 34 of these 3/4-inch wooden half beads from Amazon and gave them all 1 coat of Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster. Once the paint was dry, I used hot glue to attach them around the inside edge of the pumpkin, leaving a tiny gap between each of the beads. I then took some of this 4-ply jute cord and used hot glue to attach it around the outside edge of the pumpkin and to wrap the stem. Next, I used one of these 7-inch wooden welcome words from Hobby Lobby and used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster to paint the front and sides with 1 coat. Once the paint was dry, I used hot glue to attach it to the pumpkin underneath the stem, trying to get it as centered as possible. I then used these wooden letters from this pack of 1.25-inch typewriter letters from Hobby Lobby and used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster to give the fronts and sides 1 light coat. After the paint was dry, I used hot glue to attach them to the front of the pumpkin underneath the word welcome, trying to space them out as evenly as possible. Then, to finish up this project, I tied a simple shoestring bow with 2 pieces of raffia and used hot glue to attach it to the stem of the pumpkin right above the wooden beads, and then trimmed up the tails. I'm loving the neutral colors and the natural textures of this pumpkin. And that's it for all of today's Harvest Theme Decor DIYs. I hope you enjoyed watching and were inspired to create some of these projects for your own home. Which one of these projects is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. It was so hard for me to pick a favorite this time, but I'm going to have to say it's a toss-up between the pumpkin wreath and the candy corn pot. Please don't forget to go check out the Hello Harvest playlist, as well as the channels of today's wonderful host and guest host. All of the links will be in the description box below. I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, as it really does help me out here on YouTube. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, what are you waiting for? Click that button and stick around for a little while. I have tons of fun projects on the way. I'll see y'all next time.